In the 3rd century before Christ, a Chinese philosopher named Han Fei wrote something that most people were too polite to say then and are still too polite to say now. He wrote, "It is not that knowing is difficult. What is difficult is knowing how to position one's knowledge." Han Fei was not a mystic. He was not interested in harmony or inner peace. He was a legalist. He studied human beings the way an engineer studies load-bearing structures, not to admire them, but to understand exactly where they break. He served in the courts of the Warring States period, an era when a single misread of a person's true intentions could cost you not your feelings, but your feet, or your life. His masterwork, the Han Fei, is the most brutally honest text in Chinese philosophy about how people actually behave behind their smiles. And one chapter in particular, chapter 12, The Difficulty of Persuasion, contains a map of human deception so precise that it reads like it was written yesterday. Today I want to walk you through the patterns Han Fei identified, not to make you paranoid, but because the people who secretly hate you are already using these patterns, and the only person being kept in the dark is you. 1. They praise you in a way that shrinks you. Han Fei observed that when a ruler secretly despises a counselor's intelligence but cannot dismiss him openly, the ruler praises the counselor's minor qualities while ignoring his major ones. He acknowledged the man's handwriting while dismissing his strategy. He complimented the packaging and discarded the contents. This is the ancient architecture of the backhanded compliment. The person who secretly hates you will praise you, but the praise will always land slightly off-center. "You are so brave for wearing that. I wish I could be as relaxed as you about my career. You are honestly so much funnier than people expect." Every sentence contains a gift and a blade, and the blade is always positioned so that if you react to it, you look ungrateful for the gift. Pay attention to where the emphasis falls. Genuine admiration highlights what you have done. Covert hostility highlights what you have done, despite some unspoken limitation they want you to feel. If someone's compliment consistently leaves you feeling smaller rather than larger, that is not a compliment. That is a measurement disguised as generosity. 2. They share your secrets under the disguise of concern. Han Fei wrote, "Affairs succeed through secrecy. They fail when talk causes leaks." It is not necessarily that the persuader himself has leaked the information, but if his words touch upon matters the ruler wishes to conceal, in such a case, the persuader's life is in danger. Han Fei was describing the court, but the mechanism is universal. The person who secretly hates you knows your vulnerabilities because you once trusted them with those vulnerabilities. And now they distribute that information, not in the form of gossip, because gossip is detectable, but in the form of concern. I am a little worried about her, honestly. She told me she has been struggling with anxiety. I do not want to say anything, but he mentioned some problems at home. They are not worried about you. They are constructing a narrative about you in rooms you are not in, and they are using your own words as the building materials. The packaging is empathy. The function is erosion. If you discover that personal details you shared in private have begun circulating in public wrapped in the language of care, you have identified someone who is dismantling your reputation, one concerned sentence at a time. 3. They disappear when you succeed. Han Fei told the story of Mi Zixia, a favored companion of Duke Ling of Wei. When Mi Zixia was loved, his every action was praised. He stole the Duke's carriage to visit his sick mother, and was called filial. He offered the Duke a half-eaten peach and was called generous, but when the Duke's affection cooled, those same actions were reframed as crimes. This is the one who once forged my order to steal my carriage, and who once fed me his half-eaten peach. Han Fei's conclusion was devastating. Mi Zixia's conduct had not changed from what it was at first, yet the reason he was formerly praised as worthy and later found guilty was this: the shift between love and hate. The person who secretly hates you behaves the same way. When you struggle, they are present, sympathetic, available, but when you succeed, they vanish. Not dramatically. They do not storm out. They simply become less reachable. The text replies slow down. The invitations thin out. Your good news is met with a brief acknowledgement and a swift change of subject. This is because your struggle confirmed a story they were telling themselves about you. that you were below them, or at least beside them. Your success disrupted that story, and rather than revise it, they withdrew. Watch who disappears when you rise. That is not busyness. That is the shift between love and hate that Han Fei mapped 23 centuries ago. 4. They ask questions designed to expose, not to understand. Han Fei wrote, "If you discuss great men with him, he takes it as an invidious comparison to himself. If you discuss petty men with him, he takes it as an attempt to trade on your importance. If you discuss what he loves, he takes it as currying favor. If you discuss what he hates, he takes it as testing him." This passage describes a person who has already decided to interpret everything you say as an offense. But the same principle works in reverse. The person who secretly hates you will ask questions not to learn about your life, but to locate its weak points. So how much did that cost? Are you two still together? Did you actually get promoted? Or is it more of a lateral move? These are not questions, they are probes. They are designed to find the place where your confidence is thinnest and press on it, gently, publicly, with plausible deniability. A person who genuinely cares about you asks questions that open doors. A person who secretly hates you asks questions that open wounds. The difference is in what they do with your answer. If they listen, it was curiosity. If they smile, it was reconnaissance. 5. They offer help that makes you dependent. Han Fei wrote about how even sages like Yi Yin and Bai Li Shi had to humble themselves. One served as a cook, the other as a slave, in order to gain access to the ruler. He then observed that the ruler who accepts this service begins to believe the servant cannot function without the master's favor. The person who secretly hates you may offer help, and the help may even be real. But notice the structure. The help is always delivered in a way that positions them as essential and you as insufficient. They solve your problem for you instead of helping you solve it yourself. They intervene on your behalf without being asked, then remind you of the intervention later. They give you a fish every day and make sure you never learn to hold the rod. Over time, this creates a dependency that looks like friendship but functions like control. And if you try to operate without them, they do not celebrate your independence. They withdraw the support abruptly and watch you stumble, because the stumble confirms what they always needed to believe, that without them, you cannot stand. 6. They correct you in public and ignore you in private. Han Fei warned, when a man of rank has committed a fault, and the persuader speaks plainly of ritual propriety to expose his wrongdoing, in such a case, the persuader's life is in danger. In the court, exposing someone's fault publicly was a death sentence for the exposer. In modern life, it is more subtle but equally deliberate. The person who secretly hates you waits for an audience before pointing out your mistake. They do not mention your error privately, where it could be received as helpful. They mention it in front of others, where it becomes a spectacle. This serves two purposes. First, it positions them as more competent than you. Second, it makes you afraid to make mistakes in their presence, which shifts the power dynamic in their favor. If someone consistently corrects you when others are watching, but never mentions anything when you are alone together, they are not trying to help you improve. They are using your errors as a stage. 7. They tell you what other people supposedly said about you. Han Fei noted that in the courts of the warring states, one of the most dangerous tactics was the relay of second-hand criticism. A minister would tell the ruler, "Others are saying that your decision was unwise," never naming the source, never providing context, always framing themselves as the reluctant messenger. The person who secretly hates you uses the same device. I probably should not tell you this, but someone said they thought you were being a little arrogant at the meeting. I defended you, obviously, but people were talking. They are not defending you, they are delivering a wound and wrapping it in loyalty. The unnamed people may not exist. The comment may have been paraphrased, exaggerated, or invented entirely, but now the damage is done. You are destabilized, you are grateful to them for the warning, and they have positioned themselves as your only ally against a world that is supposedly talking about you behind your back. Someone routinely brings you reports of other people's negative opinions without being asked. They are not protecting you, they are managing you. 8. They mirror your plans and present them as their own. Han Fei wrote, "When a man of rank has obtained a good strategy and wishes to claim the credit as his own, and the persuader shares in that knowledge, in such a case, the persuader's life is in danger. In the court, this was lethal. In your life, it is maddening. You share an idea in confidence. Weeks later, the same idea appears in a meeting, in a group conversation, in someone else's mouth, with no attribution. If you confront them, they claim they arrived at it independently. If you say nothing, the theft becomes precedent. The person who secretly hates you does not want you to succeed. See, but they are perfectly willing to succeed using your material. Watch what happens to the things you share in private. If they consistently reappear in public under someone else's name, you are not dealing with a coincidence. You are dealing with a person who has decided that your intelligence is useful, but your credit is not." 9. They weaponize your vulnerability after the relationship shifts. The story of Mi Zixia and the half-eaten peach is the clearest illustration of this pattern. When Mi Zixia was loved, his boldness was called courage, and his generosity was called devotion. When he fell from favor, the exact same actions were relabeled as crimes. His behavior never changed. The interpretation changed because the feeling behind the interpretation changed. The person who secretly hates you may once have loved you, and during that period of warmth, you were open. You shared your fears. You admitted your mistakes. You showed them the unfinished, imperfect version of yourself. Now that the warmth has cooled, those admissions are being stored, reframed, and held in reserve. The fear you confessed becomes evidence of your weakness. The mistake you owned becomes proof of your incompetence. Han Fei's warning is precise. If someone's interpretation of your past suddenly shifts to match a narrative that diminishes you, the change is not in the evidence. The change is in the feeling, and that shift almost never reverses. 10. They keep you close enough to monitor, but far enough to deny. Han Fei concluded his chapter on the difficulty of persuasion with a final image. The dragon is a gentle creature. You may approach it and even ride upon it. But beneath its throat, there are reverse-growing scales a foot across. If anyone should touch them, the dragon will surely kill that person. The ruler of men likewise has his reverse scales. The person who secretly hates you is the dragon. They allow proximity. They allow familiarity. They allow just enough closeness that you believe the relationship is real. But there is a boundary you cannot see, a set of reverse scales you must never touch. And the moment you do, the moment you outshine them, or challenge them, or simply stop being useful, the gentleness disappears and the true posture is revealed. They keep you close because distance would make their hostility visible. They keep you close because proximity provides surveillance. They keep you close because the most effective way to control a person is not to push them away, but to hold them at exactly the distance where they remain confused about whether they are loved or tolerated. If you feel perpetually uncertain about where you stand with someone, that uncertainty is not your insecurity, it is their strategy. Closing. Han Fei was poisoned in a prison cell. His former classmate, the minister Li Si, had him arrested and killed because Han Fei's brilliance had become inconvenient. Every pattern Han Fei described in his writing was eventually used against him. He mapped human deception more clearly than any philosopher in Chinese history, and it was not enough to save him. But it can be enough to save you. Not from every betrayal, not from every hidden enemy, but from the one thing worse than being hated, which is being hated by someone you trust, while you stand there, offering them the other half of your peach. Read the patterns. Trust the evidence over the emotion. And remember Han Fei's deepest lesson: people's actions did not change. Only the feeling behind the interpretation changed. When someone's reading of you shifts from generous to hostile without any change in your behavior, the problem was never you. The mask simply slipped. If this opened your eyes to something you have been feeling but could not name, subscribe to Quiet Mandate and turn on notifications so you never miss a lesson. Leave a comment telling me which of these 10 patterns you have already experienced. Name it clearly. Clarity is the first form of self-defense. Someone in your life is being slowly dismantled by a person they still call a friend. Send them this video. Sometimes the most dangerous people are not the ones who leave. They are the ones who stay just close enough to keep watching. This is Quiet Mandate. See clearly, protect yourself quietly, and I will see you in the next one.